Mains is where the exam is actually decided. Prelims eliminates, mains selects. And in mains, everything comes down to one thing: how well you write your answers. Not how much you know, how well you respond to exactly what was asked. And this is the secret most aspirants never figure out. I'm Asif Anwar. For 12 years, I have been reading copies of students who became officers and copies of students who deserved to clear but did not. The gap between them is smaller than you think, and in these videos, I'm going to show you how to close it. Now, answer writing has many important aspects: content, structure, value addition, time management. But none of it matters if you get the first step wrong. The first step is question interpretation. Get that wrong and everything else you write is wasted. Here is what I see in answer sheets every single day. Two kinds of mistakes from two completely different kinds of students. The fresher reads a question and their mind locks on one word. The question becomes a trigger and they start writing everything they know on the keyword they are familiar with. Take the case of question number 10 in GS paper 1 mains 2025. Does globalization result in only an aggressive consumer culture? Justify your answer. The fresher sees the word globalization and out comes everything they have ever read on the topic. Definitions, economic dimensions, cultural homogenization, McDonaldization, everything. Carefully written on the page. But the question did not ask what globalization is. The demand was hiding in one word, and that word is only. The question was asking you to take a position and justify it. The fresher never saw that word, and 10 marks were gone. The second kind of mistake is even more painful because this happens to students who are veterans, senior aspirants, students who have already gone through the cycle 2-3 times. They know the topic deeply, but and this is where exactly the problem begins. Take question number 19 in paper 3 mains 2025 again. What are the major challenges to internal security and peace process in the northeastern states? And map the various peace accords and agreements initiated by the government in the past decade. Now, that's an interesting question. So, the answer begins with Luki's policy and Northeast, history of insurgency since 1947, the Naga National Council, AFSPA, Assam Accord of 1985. By the end of page 1, the answer has still not reached what the question has actually asked. Then they rush and cramp in the last few lines: Bodo Accord, Bru Resettlement, Karbi Anglong Agreement. No mapping, just a list, squeezed in because the space ran out. Now, this question had a very clear scope, the past decade, and it had a very clear directive: map, not list. The repeater ignored both, not because they did not know the content, but because they could not stop themselves from writing everything they know. And this is a problem. One writes what they know, the other writes what they want the examiner to see they know. Both answered a question, just not the one on the paper, right? Now, let's come down to this. What is question interpretation? For me, it's basically 3 things, right? The first is the explicit demand of the question. What is the question directly asking? Read the question once, twice, and identify every part. If it has 2 parts, both parts must be addressed. This sounds obvious and easy, but in most copies we see half the question sits unanswered on the page. Now, the second part, it's more interesting. It's called the implicit demand. What is the question asking without spelling it out? And this is where the marks are hidden. Take, let's say, question 4, GS paper 1 mains 2025. How are climate change and sea level rise affecting the very existence of island nations? Discuss with examples. Most students will write about the impact: Tuvalu sinking, Maldives building seawalls, Kiribati purchasing land in Fiji, and then they stopped. But the examiner was waiting for the way forward. Let's say they wanted Paris Agreement, the Loss and Damage Fund, India's position, what is the global community doing? And nobody asked for it explicitly, but yet the examiner expects it. Because every impact question in this exam carries a silent second half. It's an iceberg demand. One small part is visible above the surface and the rest sits underneath. You have to train yourself to ask, what is this question assuming I will include without being told? The third is the boundary. What is this question deliberately leaving out? Every question sits inside a wider theme, and that's very easy for a student to recognize, and they do it instantly. But the actual answer lives in a much narrower zone within that theme. Take the case of GS paper 2 mains question number 17. National Commission for Protection of Child Rights has to address the challenges faced by children in the digital era. The theme is child rights. That's very easy. Every aspirant sees it. But the zone is much smaller. Not POCSO, not child labor, not the constitutional framework. The zone is limited to digital era, specifically cyberbullying, online exploitation, data privacy of minors, algorithmic targeting. Most aspirants will write a careful answer on child rights in general, with the digital era maybe tucked away in the end of the second page as an afterthought. It was a good answer, but to a question that paper did not ask. So the examiner was asking about the theme, the examiner was asking about a specific zone within it. Identify the theme, then identify what is it limited to. That is question interpretation: explicit demand, implicit demand, and the boundary. These three things are what question interpretation comes down to. Now, there is a part which is nobody talking about, right? It's about space planning. I recently had an interaction with Akansh Dhul, who secured rank 3, and he said something very interesting that stayed with me. He said, your answer sheets are real estate, limited space, premium real estate. Every line you write on that sheet has to earn its place. Once you have interpreted the question, decide before you write where each part is going to go in that page. Page 1 is premium real estate, the core demand, your strongest dimensions, the part that proves you understood the question. Page 2 is for substantiation, implicit demand, way forward, conclusion. Skip the planning and you already know what happens. Page 1 ends shallow and the rest gets squeezed and crammed and rushed in the page 2. Every evaluator recognizes pattern, and that costs you marks twice. Once for what you did not write, and once for what the answer sheet or the answer looked like. 30 seconds of planning before you write will do more for your score than 30 minutes of extra reading. So before you write your next answer, ask three things. What is being explicitly asked? What is being implicitly expected? And what is the question deliberately excluding? Then decide where each part leaves on that page. Get this right and the marks will move. You will see your marks rising. Get it wrong and no amount of content will save you. And one last thing, these are my observations. These are not rules. These are not compulsory to be followed. And there are toppers who have cracked this exam writing completely differently, and they were right for themselves. Take what works for you and leave the rest. I'm Asif Anwar, and this is where every good answer begins.